Welcome to the Profit Tool Belt podcast just for contractors. Now, whether you serve commercial or residential customers, if you're interested in the business of the contracting business, then welcome. You're here looking for straightforward, no BS answers. This show is all about getting to the next level by working smarter, not just harder all the time. We're using business tools to attack bottlenecks and get you and your team from chaos to clarity. Now, today's guest is John Wilker, and get ready to hang on to your socks. You can reach John or I on LinkedIn, and please do. John's last name is Wilker, Wilker. And we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship inside your own business. I ran across John doing a reference check on somebody else. I heard his story, his crazy story about building a business in a totally unlikely way. And that got my entrepreneurial juices going. And I thought, you know what? My audience needs to hear this. And so I invited John to be on the show. So here's 3 reasons why this episode is important. Number 1, if you've got a son, a daughter, a niece, a nephew, a brother, a partner who needs to have some space to grow on their own, and you're trying to find a way to make this business work for both of you, you might want to hear what a guy like John's got to say. That's number 1. Number 2, this show's about entrepreneurship, about thinking bigger, thinking different than everybody else. John thinks different, and he's done different. Trust me, this is crazy. You're going to laugh. You're going to shake your head. And number 3, John is the real deal. He's a business owner. He's in the construction industry like us, but he's way on the edge of the construction industry, way on the edge. And you'll see what I mean on the inside. Now, listen, you're listening to the show because you're looking for insight and wisdom, guidance, and leadership in business. If you want to learn about one-on-one business coaching with our team, or if you want to learn about some of our mastermind programs, shoot me a text and just say, Dom, let's talk. My cell phone number is 315-903-7853. In a nutshell, this podcast is about the mindset of growth and success for you as a business owner. It's really about that mindset. Now, I just said mindset, and you know I'm going to go to dad jokes. Why dad jokes? And why bad jokes? And why dad jokes poorly delivered with poor timing? Because I want to get you laughing. A laughing mind is an open mind. You're free of all the static noise that goes on in the background. Now, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I want to tell you some business stories that make you go, and scratch that beard of yours and go, interesting. I wonder what lesson I can learn. The first one is a story I really love, and it's the transformation of Netflix. You know, Netflix started in 1997. It was a DVD rental by mail service, and it faced this massive inflection point, a critical inflection point in its business in the really early 2000s, right? Digital age was coming up. Demand for physical DVDs where people had to mail it, fill out a card, wait for it to come, send it back. It was getting to be a real headache. So they knew their core business was in trouble, and Netflix made a really bold decision to reinvent itself. Can you imagine being in the boardroom when the president of Netflix walked in and said, we're moving from a mail order service to a digital one? And you think you have tough meetings, right? Now, it was 2007 when Netflix launched its streaming service so that customers could instantly watch TV shows and movies online, right? Imagine the significant investment in people, technology, strategy to do that. But then Netflix is at the start of, the digital entertainment revolution. Now everybody does it the way Netflix does it. Eventually, of course, the company phased out the DVD rental business, which, by the way, sounds easy to say, but remember, they also then had to phase out a vice president of mailing services. They had to phase out a vice president of warehousing and packaging, a vice president of people who copy DVDs from one to the other, a vice president of legal who just did maybe they changed, the lawyer just changed what they did. Do you understand? It wasn't easy. What decision are you facing right now in your business that requires bold moves? John Wilkerson's going to help us stay in that bold move headspace today, right? Now, of course, Netflix didn't stop there. They kept getting different from their competitors, and they started producing their own content. Interesting. So now they, instead of selling other people's stuff, they're selling their stuff. And the margins are higher in that. What was their first show? Was, I think, House of Cards. And then they did Stranger Things, The Crown, Narcos, right? But one of the things that they did that was really interesting, and you're going to hear John and I talk about this today, is they looked at their data. In God we trust. Everybody else bring data. I just want data. Those of you who are already getting coached by myself or Lee, Jake, Ryan are laughing because you hear us say this in every coaching meeting every single time we get together. The truth is in the numbers. Now, you got to know which numbers to look at, and you have to know which numbers to compare against, but the truth is in there, and Netflix did that. And they kept looking at viewer preferences. and they get more and more focused. That's why your Netflix feed is different than mine. That's why the shows they produce and invest in are the kind of shows people actually like. Right? Interesting. They use data to do that. Now, obviously, today's got like 200 million subscribers. Imagine the valuation. Okay, so let's leave the Netflix world for a second. Let's go to the reinvention of Caterpillar. Who hasn't heard of Caterpillar? Hands up, right? So Caterpillar, they've been around since the 20s, 1925, 26, and they started making, as you'd guess right now, tractors, heavy machinery for agriculture. But then the 80s come along and the global agriculture market's in the tank, right? And the company was going through some big losses. They had to reinvent themselves. They had to think differently. This show is all about thinking differently, right? So they recognized that they had to reinvent. So they shifted their focus from agriculture to construction and mining. Now, at that point, they had new leadership or new ideas for the old leaders, which is what we do here when we're talking about putting a strategic plan in place, investing in professional development, making sure that you're working from the neck up. That's what Caterpillar had to do, right? And so they developed more efficient machinery, more durable machinery that specifically spoke to construction and mining. Now they do engines, turbines, locomotives, and then tons of other industries. But they also invested a lot in research and development. So they made some advancements in automation and sustainability. Some of you are doing that. Any of you listening who think about lean manufacturing, who think about work in progress reports, who want to systematize the business, you're the kind of people who would appreciate the Caterpillar story. If you want simple systems, look at Caterpillar. A big part of their transformation, and listen carefully, was the launch of the cat rental stores. Totally different business model hanging off the side of the core business. We're going to come back to that in the episode with John. What did that do? It let customers rent equipment instead of buying it. It meant they could attract more customers, but it's a completely different business hanging off the side of the existing one. Again, listen carefully to what John's going to talk about today, but that gave them flexibility, reduced their upfront costs. It gave them an immediate market for the things they produced and immediate feedback on what worked and what didn't. They had multiple streams of revenue. Basically, folks, they ran their business on purpose. Then they started buying other companies and they diversified themselves. So today, Caterpillar is what Caterpillar is. Billions in revenue, employs thousands of people. All of these stories sound like they're out of your reach, but they're not. Listening to this show is about getting your head in this space, and John Wilker is the kind of guest that's going to help us. Now, listen, we're going to get to John's interview in a second here, but I want you to stay till the end of the show for a very specific training segment where I simplify and solve a common business problem. But wait, I'm also going to read you an email, and the email title is Chaos. It came from a brand new business coaching client, Construction Trades, who started with us this month. I'm reading you their email. Obviously, I'm wiping out all the confidential email, but oh my God, you want to see the bleeding and the bruising that's going on with a typical client when they've said, look, I've had enough. I got to get this figured out. Rubino, you and your team say they can figure this out for me. Let's do it. And so he sends me a summary email telling me what he expects in the meeting tomorrow, because he's sending me the email about what he wants the next day, and then laying out what his expectations are for us as business coaches. You'll see what I mean when I read the email. Stay tuned to the end to get there. All right, let's get to it. Mr. John Wilker, how are you?
I'm doing great. Great to be here, Dominic, to have a discussion with you today.
Yeah, we are firmly in entrepreneur mode.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I guess we've both been at it for a long, long time. So hopefully we can share some good stories and life lessons through this whole discussion today.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm at that point in my life where all of my stories are written in gray hair and wrinkles.
You want to see mine?
Yeah, right. We've got the same barber adding the salt and pepper to our hair. And so maybe we'll get to this in a second, but you and I met in kind of a weird, crazy, way.
It was haphazard and it was kind of serendipitous the way it happened, the way you reached out to me. And it was a little bit, you were kind of going in a roundabout way to contact me, and times it went through, but it ended up us getting on the phone together. And was that like early on a Saturday morning or something?
Yeah, I'm surprised we talked on a Sunday. We were talking on a Sunday.
Yeah, I think it was an hour conversation before we even looked at our watch, right?
Yeah. And then I said, we should make this a podcast. And so here we
That
are.
was fun.
So let me do this because everybody else doesn't know you. So I'm going to ask this very abrupt question. Ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
John Wilker, who the heck are you? And how is it you come to be speaking to all these forward-facing contractors all over the world?
Well, I used to be a contractor many, many moons ago, but it was going on 26 years ago. And that's what I did before this endeavor I do now. And my whole goal of my life, through the contracting business, and before that, I had a little landscaping business and a catering business. And I was always trying to find a simple business, in my life. I would say contracting is simple, but it was fulfilling in a way. When you finished your work, you could see a job well done. And I enjoyed it in that aspect.
Yeah.
But it still was, I had a partner. He was actually more talented than I was. And I was still in search of something a little more simplified. And I ended up tripping onto it out of left field. And it's taken over my life
In a good way.
25 years. I transitioned out of contracting in a really wonderful way. It gave me a lot of freedom. And it's pallet recycling, wooden pallets, very unsexy, unglamorous, under the radar, wooden pallets.
Let me stop for a second, because first, we are going to have to repeat what you just said. But second, let me tell the audience why you're here.
Okay.
Because, I'm an entrepreneur. I understand the business of business. And I deal with lots of family businesses.
Right.
And a lot of times, I'm going to use the classic situation that I see. There's a dad who's got a company. He wants his son or his daughter to come into the business, but the business isn't big enough, right? It's not big enough to support two people. Then we got the headbutting of son doesn't want to report to dad. Dad doesn't want to have son as employee, but they still want to provide a safe place to build an opportunity. And we've done it many times. And there's a great story of a guy named Jake, a hardscape contractor, hardscape landscaping, right? Installation contracting. And we spun off a lawn mowing business, $2 million inside his business, where both this father and the son run their own separate businesses out of the same shop. And when I talk to you, I'm like, hey, this is one of those kind of things. And you recycle wooden pallets.
Right. Yes.
Dang.
And there you go. Now, when you just go ahead and continue on with this?
Because it, no offense, but this requires some explanation.
It does. So when I first started, a friend, I'll give you a little backstory. A friend of mine actually introduced it to me to begin with, because we were doing remodeling, right? And then one day, of course, this happens to all of us in the remodeling business. We go to the door, and there's actually a note on the door telling us that they had to go out of town on an emergency. So my partner's name was Dane. We're going, okay, well, we don't have anything else scheduled this week. What do you want to do? And he said, well, let's go pick up some wooden pallets. I'm like, what? I didn't know what it was. And 3.5, 4 blocks away from where we were, there was a little industrial area. We went in there, and they had 2,000 pallets stacked up. And we bumbled through the whole process, but they ended up giving them to us for free. Yikes. Now back, we didn't know. I didn't know what to do with them. We were selling them to a pallet yard at that point, $1.50, $2 a piece. Week went by, and I said, Dane, we got to figure buyers are. Why don't we take them to a pallet yard? We can sell directly to businesses. Meet me here tomorrow, and we're going to try to figure this out, because I'd never seen a business where I get my product for free. Right? So that was appealing.
Not a legal one anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the next day he's supposed to meet me. He never shows up. I never see Dane again. He runs off with this cute girl that he's infatuated with, and I never see him again. So it's all up to me now to figure this whole process out. Who are these buyers? How can I grow this business? Where do I get more pallets? How do I sell all the different styles of pallets? So this arduous process comes into play, but I loved it because I wasn't trading time for money anymore. I was
Oh,
trading pallets for money. And if I could move a couple hundred pallets, 300 pallets before 9 o'clock in the morning and get them for free and sell them for $7, $8 a piece, do the math, pretty good money. Take
not
the rest of
bad.
the day off. And
Yeah.
off to the
And
races at that point,
it's
trying to
it's
figure
just
it all out.
you know what's incredible to me is the opportunities that are everywhere in front of us.
Never saw it coming.
No, and it's, I used to work with Brian Tracy, who I'm sure you know, big author and speaker. He said
Yeah.
opportunity knocks, but people are afraid because opportunity is always wearing work clothes.
Yep. He said, I've heard that one by Mark Twain, I believe. He said
Oh, he
sometimes,
may have taken it from Mark Twain.
yeah, it's dressed in overalls. I've
Dressed
heard
in
it.
overalls, wearing work
Yeah.
clothes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and again, I'm not trying,
Yeah.
my goal of having you,
In fact, I was doing it all wrong.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I was doing it all wrong in the beginning as well. I was actually working and lifting this stuff in the beginning and selling it to the pallet yards and dealing with one size and very limiting to myself before I started figuring it all out.
Yeah. I want to restate to everybody listening. The intent here is not that everybody run out and start doing pallet recycling. My intent is to open your eye. One of the things I like to do, and I have a feeling you're already on this path, is I want to open people's minds to the opportunity that the world has. Yeah? No?
Absolutely. Yeah. And the maneuvering processes that I had to go through is no different than being in the construction or remodeling business and having to diversify what I did. Meaning, I did pallets for years, and then I had to figure out how to do multiple different styles and do mixed loads of pallets. And then 2006 hit, and the downturn.
Mm.
The downturn hit, and I had to figure out, okay, wait, I don't need to have all my eggs in one basket, right? Like you were talking earlier, we were about a landscaping business and all. Well, I went with going with crates and drums, 55-gallon metal drums and wire spools and corrugated boxes and Gaylord boxes. And I ended up sourcing all those items as well and pivoting so I could get through that 2006, 2007 downturn. And we all, I'm sure you in the construction business had to branch out in some ways as well because people were tight on money and going broke and houses were being foreclosed on back in that time. So
Yeah.
business is all about a pivot at some point and
Yeah.
growth.
Well, and business is about mindset. And again, I go back to that business owner who's growing their company, but maybe they're 40, 45 years old. They're not ready to hand it on to their son or their daughter. If their son or their
Right.
daughter is ready to do something, maybe come into the business and saying, well, there's no room for me, but there is. And again, I'm not saying it's the pallet business. I'm just saying find a way, get clever. Go get yourself educated, learnified.
Correct. And it's so funny that you bring that topic up because my stepson is very educated at this point. In fact, he's going for his PhD right now. He's part of a faculty of a private college, on the and faculty, and then part of the administration end of it.
Okay.
And we're finding out that college possibly close up in the fall. It's going under, right? So discussion of him and I talking about the pallet business as well, and you'll learn more of what I'm doing as well that comes into play. That discussion was being had last night, and he said something very important that as a business owner, you need to be ready to be able to hand it off to your kids because you don't know what's coming down the pipe. Right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Preparedness. Yep.
Yeah. So he was saying, I need he's educated. He everything laid out and the processes and the procedures laid out basically in a file that we can hand over to him. that shows all these processes. And so even if it wasn't him, you're able to hand those keys over to someone else so they can pick up the ball and learn exactly how to do that in quick fashion, because you don't have a lot of time. It takes time to learn on your
Yeah.
feet. You need to have it organized.
Yeah.
And we've started doing that, but now we are thinking, okay, we have
How to put systems
to
in
set
place,
that
right?
up as well, and get, if he's going to step it. Exactly.
Yeah. I've got a funny story about putting those systems in place. I was dealing with a family business, because we deal with lots of family contracting businesses. I think the only other
Right.
industry that have as much family as restaurants. And
Oh, yeah.
we don't coach restaurants.
Yeah.
No.
That's it.
So this is a family business. The daughter has grown to the position where she's actually the president of the company.
Nice.
Right? The two brothers are reporting to her, which she always jokes. She's like, it's always been that way, because she's the daughter. She runs the family. But she wants to go on vacation. So she leaves for vacation. We have everything set up so the coaching meetings continue. The business is running. Accounts payable is set up. Accounts receivable is set up for everything in the company is running great. Well, the day comes for our coaching meeting, and let's just say it's Thursday at 3.
Right.
And I'm sitting there waiting for these guys on the Zoom call. And they're texting me. They're like, Dom, we don't know how to log into Zoom. Like the one system we don't have in place is these guys don't even know how to log into Zoom if President Sister isn't there, right? And I mean, they're a wonderful family, and the business is fine, but it just shows things, you, man. Yeah. You say you want somebody to lock up so you don't have to be there at the end of the day, but did you get the guy a key? Did you give him a closing procedure? Does he know how to turn on the alarm? Does he know how to turn off the alarm if he's opening? All those things are systems.
I'm telling you, and if you have a CRM, customer relationship management software, oh my God, I was a contractor. I'm a pallet guy, and now I got to learn. If I want to communicate with my customers or potential customers, all the little pipelines you have to keep track of, and the system that if they answer yes to this, it puts them in this email series. I mean, it is, when I'm behind the computer dealing with that kind of stuff, I want to just stick a pencil on the side of my neck at some point, because it's maddening. And then the whole system goes. I mean, it went down to our website went down a week ago for 3 days. Lightning storm.
Yeah.
I mean, and then it's maddening. Customers are calling me, and I have students and all that. We'll get in that later, but they're all calling me. What's going on? It's crazy. Maddening.
Yeah. Where's the only pallet recycling website in the world? And no offense, John, I say that with 100% credit and high fives. Again, the opportunities are endless. Absolutely. They just are. And I'll go back to the story about Jake. He's running a really good landscape installation companies, retaining walls and irrigation systems and paving stones, all like normal stuff. And he'd been running it for years, raised a great family. But him and his son were just kind of too similar. But his son still wanted to work in the business. How do you create a space for somebody? And maybe you just start spinning off stuff on the side. Like, for instance, how much space do you need? I don't know any of this, but how much space does a guy need to run a pallet recycling business?
Well, the way I do it, you don't need any, because I'm going directly from a supplier to a buyer.
Oh, okay. So you're brokering it? Is that a good
No,
word?
I can actually do the move. I do brokering as well, but I'm actually driving into a supplier.
Oh, you got the truck doing the moving
with pallets they no longer need.
Uh-huh.
Right. And then I'm driving 3 blocks down the road. Excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. Excuse me.
Should have fried it first.
Sorry. It's been happening for 3 days now.
Oh.
But I'm driving in, they're loading my truck, and I'm going 3 blocks down the road to the buyer. They're unloading the pallets that I got.
Okay.
I'm writing out an invoice and rinsing and repeating.
I see.
So I'm not storing them. I mean, I don't really need it. I have another driver that drives for me on days, and in Birmingham as well, and operates that way. But the back end of the business and the potential customers, and what I have also, the other business that you know about that I do as well, comes into play with my stepson trying to, last night, part of me was going, he's trying to maneuver his way in here a little bit, and you get a little protective.
Yeah, as we do, right? And this is your baby. But at the same time, what's his PhD going to be in?
Marketing.
A PhD in marketing.
Yeah, I mean, he could be a great asset.
Yeah. I just think about how many of us are putting our kids through school with like a PhD in Renaissance literature. And you're like, oh yeah, they're going to be working for me one day.
Yeah, that ain't gonna work.
Or welcome to Starbucks. Yes, our application forms are right here.
I love it. I love it.
I shouldn't laugh, John. I had a chance to go to college. I'm blessed for that. And I ended up getting a degree in archaeology.
Can you give me 1 second?
Yeah, go ahead and cough it out. Put yourself on mute and cough it out.
I need a lozenge real quick.
So, guys, John looks like he swallowed a frog or a bug or something, and he's got to exit. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's the first time ever we've had somebody storm out of a podcast. He'll come back. He just needed to cough. But again, guys, let me remind you, or people, I want to remind everybody, the reason that I have John here as a guest is because I want to show you the opportunities that are around you in the world. We don't have to limit ourselves. I would imagine all you need is a desk. And if you've got a desk space in your office, it comes back to the question that we all have to ask ourselves. Start your questions with how can I or what if? And the answer will follow. John, you're back?
Absolutely. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
I've had this cough for 3 days. I don't know why. I don't know what it is. It won't go away.
Maybe I said to everybody, I told everybody you ate a bug. And it was stuck in.
It felt like it. I was struggling over here. Thank you all for your patience. Out there in the internet land.
Hey, so tell me some stories about your students, because you teach people how to do this. So tell us stories, about real world, how you see it playing out.
It's fun all the time. I teach people this business model, and I tripped into that as well. I just had a friend ride around with me once, and this was he came on town for different business, and I said, wait a minute, I got a couple of deliveries this morning. He goes, what are you talking about? I said, well, I have this pallet business. Like I said, it's under the radar. And he rode around, made a few $1,000 in a couple hours. And he said, this is brilliant. Will you teach me how to do it? And a little light bulb went off in my head. I went, well, why should I have all the teach a lot of people how to do this,
Yeah.
So I ended up getting, putting some stuff together and teaching people how to do it as well. But I got a student just texted me at 3:07 today. How about this? Less than a week, 650 pallets every 7 to 10 days on a 53-foot trailer. To haul 600, I'll get the rest. The pallets are $1.50, so he's paying $1.50 for them. Should make around $5,700 a month. Not a bad plan.
Wow. Oh, so you don't always get them for free. Sometimes you're buying them because there's a deposit or whatever.
A little more, right? Yeah, there's certain sizes we'll pay $1.50, $2 a piece, and sell them for 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. So, but the majority, 95% of the stuff I get is for free. The way I work it, so low overhead.
I only have one pallet story. You want to hear it?
Sure.
So a couple of businesses ago, I was selling used junk on eBay.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I started, I started a different business doing that. I was selling used junk. But from used junk, I moved to selling used books for the same reason you and I just talked about. I needed a simple, repeatable system. And books, you can understand them. There's a code on the back, that black and white code called an ISBN number. Yeah. It's a universal code. So it was easy to inventory and, anyways, my best purchase ever is I bought a rail car full of books.
Oh, wow.
Full of remainder. They're called remainder books. They're books that didn't sell. And it was on a rail car. So I bought the entire rail car, and I can't remember what I spent on it, paid for it, but I probably spent $3,000 for the entire rail car. But the retail value was like $80,000, $90,000. So I'm like, well,
beautiful.
The company car, which was a Buick, like with the cushioned back seats. I'm like, that was our company car. I go, the company car is not going to cut it. I'm going to have to rent a van. So I go rent like the white van from U-Haul. like a
Right.
white passenger van. They didn't have the box van. And I pull up to the rail siding, and it was CF Freightways. And the guy says to me, "How are you going to unload the rail car? You got to do it today." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm just going to put it in the van." He goes, "You can't do that." He goes, "You got to put it on a pallet." I'm like, "I don't have a pallet." So they gave me a pallet, and I hand bombed onto this pallet.
Right.
And then he goes, "Well, you gotta wrap it." I'm like, "What's wrapping it? I don't know how to wrap it." So they gave me wrapping, like the plastic. What do you call that? That greenish wrapping.
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah. The plastic
Shrink wrap.
shrink wrap. It was the worst day of my life. And by the way, I wasn't dressed. I didn't understand in my head, because I'm kind of dumb. I didn't understand what a rail car full of books meant until I showed up. I couldn't even get in the rail car. I'm like, this thing's high up, man. Oh, what a disaster of a day. I did it all in a day. I ended up getting obviously a couple more pallets, because as I emptied them off inside there, I just used the pallet it was on. But, that's how you start. You just start by hustling, man.
Exhausting.
I did it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now I'll give you a couple more, just because there's some of my favorite stories of students that have done this. One of the guys, he was retired. He's retired military. He had a little pension, but he also, his bills would run out. At his bills, he had enough money with Social Security and his pension to be able to just pay his bills.
He had more month than money.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. That's the term I was looking for. And his friends are golfing and fishing and bowling. So he discovers, me and he gets some, we teach him how to do all this stuff. And he called me up a few months in. He said, "I got it perfect set up, John. On Tuesdays, I do 2 deliveries. I make $1,600, and I take the rest of the week off, and I go fish with my friends, and I go golfing with them where I didn't have the money to do it before. It's perfect."
Nice.
So is he making a killing, or, killing his quality of life? Those kind of stories. I have a homeless guy that was living in a storage shed when he got in. He barely had some room on his credit card to get, to get trained and all. But his back was against the wall, and he had 3 accounts after a week, and ended up back with his wife. They were estranged, and so that was, you run across so many different people. And I want to tell people, if you have a skill set out there, I figured out, well, I've been doing this for so long. Well, why don't we all how to do it? And with the folks out there to listen to this, all of y'all have a skill set as well. So another thought is to train other people, teach other people, have a channel or whatever. It could be another form of revenue for folks.
I see. Like, use a desk, hire somebody, and run it off the side of the company. Just run it off the side of somebody else's desk. Okay. Yeah.
Exactly. Create little training programs on different wall boarding, or, fixture, all different simple that be willing to pay you to do, so, or teaching other contractors how to run the business the right way. There's so many other ideas out there that you can do as a side hustle based on what you're already doing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a husband and wife, father, son, but one of them that I really enjoy is just 2 brothers, and they're out in Texas. And not only did they do the pallet the way I do it, moving stuff from point A to point B and brokering, but they also created their own yard as well. They kind of complicated the whole process, but they do very well. They're doing like a $500,000 a month. Well, like really well
in pallets. Oh my gosh.
Okay. Yeah. But early on when they were getting going, he sent me a message and also called me. He said, "We just got a call from Hyundai." And I go, "Oh, really?" And he said, "Yeah, they wanted 80,000 crates." And I went, "Wow." He said, "Well," I said, "Brad, y'all don't build crates yet, right? Y'all are just doing pallets as well." And he goes, "Yeah, that's true. But I know people who do build crates." And I made 2 phone calls, John, and then we only made $1 per crate, but 24 hours later, we made 80,000.
Golly, at $1 per.
So they were at $1 per crate. So it wasn't like, they probably could have made a lot more. But the fact that they said, "John, just from this little training, we just cannot believe what's going on with our lives. and they just kept on growing. They showed videos. We have a private group as well, and showing that growth of where they even had to upgrade the electrical systems coming into their
Oh gosh,
operation
that's
and the
expensive.
install.
Upgrading the
Oh,
power out of your shop is expensive.
exactly. And then they had to, the saws and new saws they had to buy, and then the new trucks, and then they had to expand,
And they do pallets.
and the whole while one of the brothers falls in love and he gets married. I mean, it's just seeing that whole process of, when people become successful, it gives them more options, and he just, I don't know. It's just, I have hundreds of stories like that where you just see fathers and sons working together where they used to not get along, but now they do. And husband and wives, the wife runs the back ends of the business. And and some of the wives are going out there and doing it, doing the sales.
Right. But this is
stuff.
incredible.
So
I
in
I
our
just love
group, you just
this.
think, yeah, yeah,
Um,
it's just one. I mean, I never envisioned it when I put this together. Like I would see all this happening, but it's been a huge blessing to watch it.
no kidding. So tell me a little bit more because I don't quite understand. You run a course?
Yeah, I like I said, when my friend had that light bulb moment going, I've been kind of getting away with this business for the longest time,
Mm.
not working. My goal was not to work, And when I was doing construction, I was working more than all day at points. And it was frustrating. I wasn't able to spend as much time with my family. So I was always in search of that type of business.
Yeah.
So what it came down to is I'm going to try to help other people do the same thing, right? And I'm going to monetize it as well. Whatever. I'm going to share my knowledge that I've been doing it for 25 years. It's worth something. Shortcuts for people. So I went out in the field for 6 months and filmed every
Oh, did you? Okay.
about the pallet business. I set these deals up. Yeah. So I have 4 courses basically now that teach you step by step by step by step on exactly how to get this thing up and running, these accounts up and running, who the suppliers are and the buyers are, and
I love it.
what to do in these warehouses. It's problem solving, just like it is in construction. We had
Yeah.
construction people here at our house today. There's the 4th time they've been here, and they finally found the right solution, to fix the
Yeah.
issue. That was the same thing in these warehouses. There's dozens and dozens of issues that if you're around it enough, you learn what their problems is and help them work more efficiently. I don't want to be just the pallet guy. I want to make your operation run more efficiently.
Mm-hmm. Add
And the
value.
spin-off effect is I'm locked in with as a business practice, consulting someone in that way where the other guy doesn't,
Mm.
you win. And I'm just ended up helping other people with those tactics as well to be able to lock in suppliers and buyers and help these businesses
Yeah.
I hadn't helped before. And now, I mean, it sounds crazy, but I have 6,000 students in 14 countries.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
And
And
I mean, I know this wasn't exactly the topic we were going to talk about today, but it's life just has so many twists and turns. You don't know what's coming next, right?
be open. Be open
Right.
to the possibilities. Yeah. There's a segment of my show where I actually tell dad jokes, John.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
reason I do that is because I want people to think differently. I just want them to open up their mind. And that's when I heard you, and I found you because I was looking for education and I was doing a reference check on somebody else. And then you were the reference. I'm like, okay, this is right in line with me saying, I want to blow your mind, audience. I want my audience to go, what? Because that's the opening. I've used, I don't know if you ever use this analogy, but imagine money's falling from the sky.
Yeah.
How
Okay.
would you hold your hands to grab that money?
I wouldn't. I'd open my shirt.
Okay. Imagine you just use your hands.
Okay.
Would you keep your hands open or would you clench them into fists? Would you keep your
keep
fists?
them
I keep them open, right? But how many times do we do that with our mind? We say, oh, I know everything. I know how this business works. I already know. There's nothing Dom or anybody like him can tell me. There's nothing John or anybody like John can tell me. You're right. You're smart. You know your stuff. But what if there's something you are blind to? Open up your mind.
Constantly you have to. I mean, the world's changing like crazy right now.
I gave up saying I know the answer,
Well,
which was a
you
big
get
part
with
of being
Chat.
20. A big part of my 20s was I know everything,
Yeah, oh yeah, I was that same way. But
you know?
Chat GPT and all that stuff coming out. There's a whole layer of challenge of a layer of knowledge that I'm going to have to master, or I'm going to be left in the dust.
Yep.
Um, I'll tell you one quick story that inspired me to do all this. To be always looking for a business model that made sense for my life.
Yeah.
That wasn't going to grind me into dust, and maybe that I could pass on to my kids. And in a former life, I was married down in Fort Lauderdale and back in my 20s. And my first wife, she was Swedish. So we were having to do stuff through the immigration department down in Miami. And we had to go down there, and you'd have to get there a night before at 12 midnight, right? And there was the line would go all the way around the block and around the block again. There'd be hundreds or even thousands of people down there waiting in line to get there. Get in the next morning when it opened up at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
This guy drives up, and it's with a trailer, and he's got stacks and stacks and stacks of plastic chairs. And he starts taking
No
them off,
way.
and he bring them out for $7, $7 a pop. And there's not one person out line don't want to sit down in that chair for the next 3 or 4 hours before
So he
the
just
place.
rented plastic chairs to the
Oh,
audience.
every night, night after night, thousands upon thousands of dollars. And then he would collect them all back, put them on the trailer and drive off. And I said, now that is a problem that has been solved right in front of somebody's face, and nobody else would. He was like my hero, as far as this is an obvious problem. How do I
solve it?
how do I make a living out of it, I guess, or how do I help these people? But, it's really cool. I love that guy.
Yeah. Well, it opens up your mind.
Right.
John, thank you for being a guest. I love the entrepreneurial aspect. I love the energy you bring to this. I love the fact that you educate people. That's what I do. If somebody out there is shaking their head, laughing, big smile on their face, and they're like, I got to call John. How do we find you in this big, wide, crazy world?
All you need to go to is I call it, I've been talking about simplicity, right? So I call it the simplest biz.
The simplest biz.
The simplest biz.info.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I'm looking at your site now. The simplest biz. So biz.info.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, you're on YouTube. What's your YouTube channel name?
It's the simplest biz as well. It's you can do
That's
at
simple.
John Pearl. What's that?
That's simple.
Yeah,
it's
just
the same thing.
Just Google the simplest biz. I have, I don't know, 300 videos up on a channel there. And if you ever, I tell you what's going to happen to your folks, and not that y'all are in the industry. Weird thing happens, you're going to start seeing them everywhere if you hadn't already. You just get infected by it.
Yeah, it's one of those things you start to see but that's the point of the episode, John.
Right.
Is when your eyes are truly open, you start to see the opportunities in front of you.
Right.
Yeah, the technical term. Do you want the technical term for what you just said?
I would love it. Thinking out of the box, but what is it?
No, it's called your reticular activating system.
Well, I'll never remember that one.
No, I know. That's why I never use it. But you gave me an opportunity to feel like I got to use $3 words.
Right then.
That's all business coach theory that operates in the back. Good. I know. Go, everybody shake their head at Rubino.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's been a great talking with you as well. And I just know that life is full of surprises, and you just got to keep your eyes open at all times to see what's out there next, and try to optimize what you got already is the main thing. And keep that pipeline full of
opportunities.
Customers, all about.
Yeah. John, thank you so much for being on the show. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Bye-bye. Well, what did you learn from Mr. John Wilker? Isn't that the craziest story? Pallets. I shook my head. The first 3 or 4 minutes of my first phone call with him was, tell me what you do again. You recycle pallets? How does that work? Who ever thought of this? And then I started to think about clients I've had in the past. There's one that you guys have probably heard of here, Jake's Landscaping. Jake, business owner, does landscaping, right? More a hardscape side, not the maintenance side. He would do retaining walls and install sod and do, run there with a backhoe and Caterpillar and, move the dirt around to, the hardscaping, right? It's hardscaping. They would also do the underground sprinklers, all that stuff. But he wanted to bring his son into the business, and his son wanted to have more leadership in the business, but they kept butting heads because Jake wasn't ready to let go. He was still young enough. He still had the energy. He still had the drive. And he still saw himself as the owner of, go figure, Jake's Landscaping Services, right? So how do we make space for the son who's ready to be a leader, ready to take over, ready to prove himself, but there's no room in the business? I was under a big challenge as a business coach to keep this family business together, but give them options to grow. Maybe some of you are in this same situation. That's why I really like John Wilker's approach. Maybe it doesn't matter to me whether you use John's approach or not. I just want to show you that the possibilities of the world are bigger than you might be seeing. Anyways, in the case of Jake's Landscaping, they would go do a job. I remember, I'll tell you the first job they got. Jake and the company did this museum. And I said, okay, well, listen, let's send a letter since we know all the decision makers on the museum. Let's send a letter back to them saying, hey, we can do lawn maintenance services. And the first thing Jake and everybody around the table says, that's not going to work. That's not how this works, Rubino. You don't know how this works. And I'm like, do it. Let's do it. Let's see what happens. It's free. So we send a letter, not an email, a letter, like an addressed letter to the person. And it said, hey, we can do your maintenance services. Well, they ended up getting that contract. It wasn't as easy as I'm making it sound right now. There was a lot of false starts and wrong letters and all, but we get that stuff figured out. Here's the end of this. Well, it's not the end of the story. Here's where the story went to. It took 2 years before Jake's son, Jaden, got the business to $2 million. 2 years from zero to $2 million. Again, hanging off the side of the original business. That's why I like John's story. And that's why I want you to hear that story. Anyways, let me get to an email I talked about before. The title of this email is Chaos. Now, I've changed the names to protect the innocent. I'm sure you guys can appreciate that. We take confidentiality seriously here. When you hear me reading the email, you'll understand why I wanted to change the names. This gentleman's a contractor. He's got 35 staff. He contacted us. He's a listener to the podcast, so he's going to laugh hearing his letter. But of course, nobody knows it's you. And he decided to do one-on-one business coaching with us, right? There's lots of different ways people work with us. You can do one-on-one business coaching. You can do the Construction Millionaire Boot Camp. After you finish boot camp, you can qualify for the alumni program. If you finish all of your assignments and if you're an active and contributing member, we'll invite you to the alumni program. Invitation is not a given. You actually have to work for it. And then there's something called the business operations audit, which is a light version of getting things done. Usually, that's an opportunity for when two partners are together and one partner wants growth and the other one isn't sure. So you do the audit so that we lay out, sort of a picnic table of options. Anyways, this gentleman here is doing coaching. So this email came to me the day before our first business coaching kickoff meeting where we build the strategic plan. Ooh, I just knocked my microphone there, folks. So here's the email. I'll stop every once in a while to explain things if I think it's a little bit gray. Okay. The title of the email is just one word, chaos. The body of the email. Here we go. Hey, Dom, sorry about today. I have to admit, it's been a very tough stretch with little to celebrate. I wanted to write down a few thoughts before our first meeting. A lot of this is rambling. I'm definitely in technician mode and not CEO mode and have been for a while. Rick, not his real name. Rick is the project manager's departure is a blessing long-term, but this week and next has added a lot to my schedule. Turns out he was goofing off a lot and spending more time managing his hunting lease access than working. Let me stop there for a second. How many times have you terminated somebody and then you go check their email and you realize that they're actually running their fantasy football league from your desk, your office desk? In this case, Rick, not his name, Rick was spending more time managing his hunting lease access than working. Anyways, this gentleman continues. I don't think anyone in the office is worried about him leaving in the long term. I mentioned the shop guys. I have pretty good reason to believe several are smoking up on their breaks. Smoking up, for those of you who aren't familiar, I can't imagine who's not. That means they're smoking weed, marijuana. Back to his email. There These are the ones that waste my time and energy. In our short call today, you brought me right back to my RRH. So, folks, RRH is revenue responsibility per hour. That's a tool that business coaches like myself or Lee, Ryan, or Jake will use when we're working with business owners like you to help us sharpen our focus and get to what's really important. Cut through all the BS and understand that your responsibility per hour is very high as a business owner. You have a revenue responsibility per hour. It's amazing how the priorities float to the top when you know that number. Let me go back to his email. In our short call today, you brought me right back to my RRH, revenue responsibility per hour. And you're right. These guys are literally stealing time through drama. How many of you are laughing at that because it's happening for you? I've been so worried about keeping enough guys to keep our customers happy that I haven't had the, I'm going to say cojones, to do what I need to. Can you add this to our agenda for tomorrow? He goes on to say, I know I need another admin to help Melanie, not her name. I know I need another administrator to help Melanie and take on some HR and accounting. I'll write that ad and run it this weekend. So he's already taking actions from the things we talked about when we talked about getting started with coaching. Blake, so he's going on to another person, not his name, Blake, who was promoted to PM, will be good. He is already monitoring all of his jobs daily and asking what else I need help with. The other PM starts second week of August. He's a real go-getter, and I want to keep him motivated. I think he'll be solid on our team. So already a lot of actions just from this all started with Dom, let's talk. Then we get on the phone. We have a couple of meetings. There's some back and forth. There's decisions to be made. Are you going to do coaching? Are you not? Is it, the timeliness, the ROI? Does coaching make sense? And now we've started. So you can see that his mindset has already moved to action mode instead of reaction mode, right? So he says, I think he'll be solid on our team. He continues on to say, I'm thinking I'll move ahead with 2 project managers. I'll probably keep 2 customers for myself and delegate all of the others. Melanie, not her name, Melanie can help me with mine. The other thing you showed me in our first meeting was how to manage my time better. I'm looking at my notes and I'm definitely going to ask Melanie to help with my schedule, and then we'll delegate that to the new admin person. I need a change there in order to be more effective. Okay, so you think that's the end of the email, Dom? That's a pretty long email. I'm getting kind of bored. No, there's 2 more paragraphs. He goes on to say, my oldest son definitely wants to join the business in a few years. I think that's 2 years away or more, something to discuss down the road. Isn't that interesting? Maybe the space he needs to make in this business for his son is something like what John Wilker does, or something else, right? And then this is his final paragraph. I promise. Dom, getting started with you is overdue. In 10 minutes of conversation today, you reminded me to approach these In 10 minutes of conversation today, you reminded me to approach these HR issues by focusing on our values. I would not have remembered that on my own, so I'm not really certain about that decision. Looking forward to our meeting tomorrow. Okay, so that, folks, is one of you listening or all of you listening. And isn't it crazy? How many strings are attached between you and this gentleman here? How many similarities? Let's say that he's smack dab in the middle of North America. How many of you to the right, to the left, up north and down south feel like your situation is absolutely unique? I'm in El Paso, Dom. It's different here. I'm in Winnipeg, Manitoba. It's different up here. I'm in Seattle or Vancouver or Prince George, right? I'm in Toronto. I'm in Boston. I'm in Key West. It's different here. No, you just heard from somebody that could have been your neighbor or could have been you. Anyways, proud to be working with this gentleman. And if you ever have questions about working together, it's just a conversation. Maybe it goes nowhere, but you got to at least talk it through. Let's simplify and solve a common business problem like this gentleman here, the chaos email. If you've got issues around time, team, or money, and those issues are causing you stress, I want you to get on the wait list. Here's how you get started. I have a free training that we run every once in a while. We're going to put together a new one. We haven't done it in about 6 months. So just send me the keyword waitlist. Just say waitlist in a text message. And I think you guys already know the number, but I'll say it again for you. My cell phone number is 315-903-7853. And just say waitlist. And then what we'll do is get all the details and get you invited to the time, team, and money professional development webinar. Okay. That's going to be an important step for you to sit back and take some notes. Now, here's the rules. You can attend that webinar from your truck while you're driving from job site to job site, but all you're doing is wasting your time. It's just a waste of time. If you really want to make the most of this, book it into your calendar, and I'll tell you what time it is once we get all the people on the wait list informed, and just be in your office or be at a Starbucks or a Panera Bread's, or I don't care where you are, but be somewhere that you can be the business owner you want to be. Think about that. Be somewhere that you can be the business owner you want to be. Maybe you go home early from work that day and you go into the basement or the garage, you fire up the computer and you sit there. Nobody knows you're there. You got your headphones on, you've got a pen and a piece of paper, and you're ready to learn. Professional development, right? You know who else does professional development? Doctors, surgeons, lawyers, accountants, engineers, right? All of the inspectors at the city that you harp on all the time, they go for professional development. So why don't we as contractors? Well, this is part of that professional development that I think you want to add to the mix. Anyways, let's stop the podcast here. I'm going to thank John for being on the show, because that opens up your mind to the entrepreneurial opportunities in front of you. There is simply nothing holding you back in this world except yourself. And heck, there's nothing holding me back except myself. It's the same for all of us. But when you see these cool ideas and neat things like John Wilker's story about pallet recycling, who's still shaking their head at that one? I am. And I'm impressed as heck, right? Or the Caterpillar story, or the Netflix story. There's stories that I researched that I didn't even tell you about. The invention of Spanx for women, the invention of Saks underwear for men. All of those things are incredible stories where people faced absolute rejection or had to reinvent their business. Why did I use two underwear examples? I don't know. My head's in a weird place. Anyways, I study a lot of stuff, right? But think about those reinventions that had to happen. Think about those, and then please don't get on a call with me and say, Dom, you don't understand the deck, dock, and pergola business. It's been the same for 100 years and it's never going to change. All you're doing is pulling the cord on my brain. I'm like, well, let me tell you, my friend, it's going to change, and you're probably going to be at the front of that change if you buy into the opportunity in front of you. Same with roofing, same with HVAC, same with kitchen cabinets, same with home renos, GCs. Let's get ahead of it. And by the way, and I'm going to end on this, don't forget that everything you do in your business right now, somebody's watching. Is it your son? Is it your daughter? Is it your niece, your nephew, your wife, your husband? Somebody's watching. Show them what it's like to be a leader. All right, folks, thank you very much for checking in. Mr. John Wilker, thank you for being our guest. I love it when you guys are here. Remember, this show is thin soup until the day that you and I can sit face to face across the table and have a cup of coffee or a glass of wine. And I look forward to that day more than you'll ever know. Have a good one.